order the meeting of the Sahuarita Town Council and inform everybody that it's being recorded, as it always is. Tonight's invocation will be given by Officer Al Guest, our wonderful school resource officer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mia Szilard and Vanessa Cromer, both fourth grade students at Copperview Elementary School Bulldogs. So at this time, officer.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving Creator, we come together in unity, acknowledging the diversity of our faiths, but united in our hope for peace, wisdom, and justice. We lift up our local town council as they make decisions that affect our community. May they be guided by fairness, integrity, and a spirit of service to all. Grant them the wisdom to lead with compassion, putting the needs of the people first and ensuring that every voice is heard and valued. We also pray for our nation. In these times of challenge and uncertainty, we ask for healing, understanding, and unity among all people. May our leaders at every level be granted the insight and courage to work for the common good, and may our citizens be filled with hope and strength to build a future of peace and prosperity. Finally, we pray for the safety of all who call this town and nation home. Protect us from harm and guide us in our daily lives. May we each contribute to a safer, kinder, and more just society. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. Our pledge leaders, step to the microphone. Yep, I taught them how to bring that down to their level.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, now that our council members have been made comfortable, we're going to get up and we're going to go down and joins our leaving council member Simon Davis down at the podium. If you'll all join me, please. Tonight, I have the honor and privilege of recognizing Simon Davis for his service to the town of Sahuarita. Start with a bit of background for Simon. Simon Davis joined the Sahuarita Town Council in September 2019, bringing extensive experience in fire service and community engagement. Simon dedicated 28 years to the Green Valley Fire District, now the Santa Rita Fire District, starting out as an EMT firefighter to fire chief before retiring in 2014. Post-retirement, he founded a fire administration and management consulting business where he remains active, including lobbying at the Arizona State Legislature to advocate for firefighters' needs. Simon also served on various fire-related boards and is vice chair of the La Posada Board of Trustees. While consulting for the Corona de Tucson Fire District, he accepted his role of fire chief once again and held that position for 5 years. As a resident in Quail Creek since 2005, Simon and his wife have been married for 35 years and previously lived in Tucson, where her family owned a long-standing glass business. With over 3 decades of familiarity with the Santa Cruz Valley, Simon has witnessed Sahuarita's growth and development. And personally, I'll miss you up there. I know you tend to be a man of few words, but we've always valued when discussions have gotten a little off base. You always know when to step in and say, maybe we need to table this item. And actually one of them, you don't have to stick around, one of them is coming back tonight that we tabled, hopefully to go smoother. But on behalf of myself and the town council, I've known you for a long time. You've seen all the development in our community. And I know you're still going to be serving with La Posada and other, but you don't get to have fun with us on, you know, these Monday nights. But on behalf of all of us, thank you for your dedicated service. Appreciate it, Simon. So we have a couple of takeaways, a signed photo. And since we couldn't find another Simon Davis to run, you get to take the nameplate with you. And to Simon Davis, in grateful appreciation for your years of outstanding service and devotion to the town of Sahuarita, August 26, 2019 to November 18, 2024. And I hope you put this in a good place as you continue your work. Thank you, Simon. I did choose you, but the microphone is yours for the.
You know, you said I'm some a few words. I've got a full-page speech.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Let's not drop anything. You thought I was kidding. No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And congratulate the new council members getting on the council. It's certainly been an honor over these last several years to serve on the council and in a small part represent the community's concerns, especially in regards to asphalt plants. Town development, and even if the former did take a few years off my life. But in seriousness, I believe the town is in a great place to move forward. It has a great management team. Mr. Dilly is taking great strides to empower all the staff to be the best they can be. I think a great addition to the town. In closing, I'd just like to say one final thing, and this is more to the folks that attend these meetings and think that government is bad and complain a lot. It's only bad if you don't get involved. If you just sit back and complain, it doesn't achieve anything. Get engaged, volunteer. This is a community council. You know, there's lots of things to do in this community, and we all live here, and so it only benefits the town. So that's kind of my soapbox from the thing. Get involved. This is a great community. I've been fortunate to be in here almost 40 years now. When I first started working in the Green Valley area, way before Sahuarita was incorporated, we had 2 traffic signals in the whole area. So it's changed, it's going to continue to change, and it needs to be well managed. And I think the place is in great hands. So thank you, and I appreciate this. Thanks.
Why don't you take this and, once you get in the, I'll come down this way, and I'll get in front of the screen. Once you get in the middle.
Okay.
Over there. Wait, they're about there. Yeah.
Well, it's
Now we move from fun to the more mundane from there. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll? Please.
Councilmember Gillespie.
here.
Councilmember Lisk.
Here.
Councilmember Lytle.
Here.
Councilmember Morales.
Here.
Councilmember Priolo.
Here.
Vice Mayor Egbert.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Next, we move to item number 6. Madam Clerk?
Discussion and possible selection of the mayor of the town of Sahuarita.
Thank you. So just to recap a little how this will work, we're going to discuss and select the mayor first, and then we'll go to the vice mayor. I'll explain the process for doing it. Each council member will be called on in random order. Only our town clerk knows what that order is. And then nominate one member of the council as a candidate for mayor. The nominee can accept or decline the nomination after all council members had an opportunity to nominate a candidate, those nominees willing to serve shall be a slate of mayoral candidates if there's more than one. And if a name if it comes to you and a name has already been called that you're okay with, then you can say no nomination, or you can repeat the person, but it's totally up to you. So is everybody okay, understanding? I know we have a lot of new council members going through this process. At this time, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Egbert, do you have a nominee?
I nominate Mayor Tom Murphy, Tom Murphy for mayor.
Mayor, do you accept?
I do, gratefully.
you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lisk?
Off means on.
If it's red, it's not white, it's very I'm not nominating.
Thank you.
Pass. Thank you. Councilmember Gillespie?
No nomination.
Mayor Murphy?
No nomination, I guess.
Councilmember Morales?
No nomination.
Councilmember Priolo?
No nomination.
Councilmember Lytle?
No nominations.
I think so.
Next, we'll move on. The slate of candidates is Tom Murphy. When I call your name, if you please would state the name of the candidate you wish to serve as mayor. Councilmember Lisk. Councilmember Priolo.
I wish Tom Murphy to be the mayor of Sahuarita.
Councilmember Lytle.
Tom
Councilmember
Murphy.
Gillespie.
Tom Murphy.
Mayor Murphy.
Tom Murphy.
Councilmember Morales.
Tom Murphy.
Vice Mayor Egbert.
Tom Murphy.
Tom Murphy has been selected as the mayor.
Oh, thank you, colleagues. I appreciate it. I don't take it lightly. I hope you always know that, one, I appreciate working with all of you, and I always have your best interests and your voices rolling through my head as I'm out there in the community and representing us at the various levels of government. So thank you.
I just want to make a point. I think there's a reason why you brought up PAG last time. So nobody
Scare everybody away?
to
It really wasn't intentional, but it might resonate. Thank you very much. Next is the selection for vice mayor. Madam Clerk.
When I call your name, if you would please announce the name of your nominee for vice mayor. Councilmember Gillespie.
Kara Egbert.
Vice Mayor Egbert, do you accept the nomination?
Sure.
Thank you. Mayor Murphy.
No nomination.
Councilmember Lisk.
No nomination.
Vice Mayor Egbert.
No nomination.
Councilmember Priolo.
No nomination.
Councilmember Morales.
No nomination.
Councilmember Lytle.
No nomination.
Thank you. The slate of candidates is Kara Egbert. When I call your name, if you would please announce the name of the candidate you wish to be the vice mayor.
This is a nail biter, so I'm going to be listening closely.
Listen,
Vice Mayor Egbert.
Kara Egbert.
Councilmember Priolo.
Kara Egbert.
Councilmember Lytle.
Mr. Egbert.
Councilmember Morales.
Kara Egbert.
Councilmember Gillespie.
Kara Egbert.
Councilmember Lisk. Mayor Murphy.
Kara Egbert.
Congratulations, Vice Mayor Egbert. You've been reelected vice mayor.
Congratulations. You want to say anything? You don't have to.
Well, I'll say that there's been other times, that has happened a lot since I've been elected, and there was one time that my name was up and didn't win, and that is hard. So even putting your name out for election is hard, putting your name out, having been nominated and not winning, even at this level, it's just hard. So thank you, council members, for your willingness to support me.
And thanks for you with the community. Appreciate it. Next is item 5, which is, item 8. Call to the public. At this time, the call to public is open. Individuals may speak for 3 minutes. spokespersons for 10. The council cannot discuss matters not on the agenda. However, at the end of the call to the public, council members may respond to criticism, request staff to review the issue, or add the topic to a future agenda. Madam, I do have. I have one call to the public. Mel Selway. Welcome back.
Thank you, council and others. I have developed and distributed a document related to the RFP for single provider for waste and recycling. Most of you should have a copy.
Yep, thank you.
I commend your decision to delay presentation to the council per this proposal. I ask that you review my document, which is a compilation of Sonora by Del Webb residents' input. My contact info is on the document if you care to contact me.
Thank you. Appreciate you staying engaged. That's the only call to the public card I have. Would anybody else like to address the council? Yes, ma'am. And if you just would, before you leave, just fill out a call to the public card and just submit it to the town clerk, please. And the buttons will help you. The green button means we've started. With the yellow comes on, that means you have a minute left to wrap up your comments, and the red, your 3 minutes is up. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'm Carol Shepard, and I did send a notice to the town council.
Could you just get a little closer to the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
I did send an email to the town council. I hope everyone had a chance to see it. I'd like to reiterate it. I like the one trash provider. I live in Rancho Resort, and we have one trash provider. But I have to say, we only pay $46.82 for a quarter. This company is a lot more, almost double. And in the paper, it said that it would be less than $20 a month, which comes to about $60. And they're coming up with a figure of $75 or $73.50. Excuse me. A 7-year contract, I believe, is much too long. A lot of things happen in that time. It could be a 2 or 3 year contract with a provision that we could renew that contract with them, or other companies could also put a proposal. That might be better. It works for us at Rancho Resort. Also, the idea that they're going to provide us at our cost for a trash can of 95 gallons is much too much for us at Rancho Resort. Right now, we have medium-sized cans there, and mine is rarely half full. I don't believe one size fits all for the community. I think we're being charged for a large family pickup rather than each individual size. If anything, I think that it should be a la carte, something that people want. It's not that difficult. Your gas bill, your electric bill is all prorated for whatever you use. So whatever we use for trash, we should sign a contract for the amount of services we need. They're also saying that they're putting in a lot of services and a lot of customer services. Well, they're providing a can, and they're telling us that'll take care of any repairs. I don't know about anybody else, but I've never had a repair on a trash can. And if there's a repair, I would think it was probably the truck that damaged it. So why are we being charged? Also, they're charging for that $75 in the base rate, but that doesn't make sense to have it go on for 7 years, I mean, even encompassing it. And it just doesn't make sense to me. I never heard of this company, and I looked on the website, and they do have 3 size cans, 32, 64, and 96. So I think each individual household should determine what size container they need. In Rancho Resort, as you probably know, there's not much space between the lots. Some people have very small garages, 1-car garage. These big cans are not going to fit in there. They're going to be very unsightly in the neighborhood, and people are told that they need to camouflage them in one way or another, which is an additional expense. And if you have your trash cans outside, we have hot weather, probably 8 or 9 months out of the year. It's going to be rather smelly. I don't think that we need this bulk pickup at all, because how often do you have bulk pickup? Maybe when a person moves out, maybe, I don't know.
I'm
But-
sorry, respectfully, the time
Okay.
has gone off. I
That's
appreciate
fine.
your attendance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And
Appreciate it.
when will this be determined? I think the prior one said it would be later.
Yeah, potentially it'll be the January 27th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak at call to the public? Seeing no movement, I will close the call to the public and move to council and town manager brief summary of events. Councilmember Lytle, anything to report on?
Nothing from here.
Okay. Councilmember Rouse? Kim?
I just want to thank Parks and Rec for a wonderful Winterfest.
Yep, thank you. Diane?
Great Winterfest. That was awesome. Thanks.
Dr. Gillespie?
I will just echo.
Echo.
Winterfest was great. Liked the drone show. That was awesome.
Yep. Kara?
I guess I would say the same
Yeah,
thing.
ditto.
Thank you. I will say that I appreciated Devin. I was able to volunteer as one of the line keepers there for the parade. It's fun to jump into that aspect and see my recreation mind go again of like how to do this better, whatever. And so I appreciate the opportunity to do that with my family as we volunteered to help the children keep safe and not get underneath those car wheels.
Well, thank you, but you did keep the fans away from Dr. Gillespie and me from,
Yeah,
you
they
know.
were trying to get to you guys. I tried my best.
But I appreciate you and your husband volunteering on the rope line because, you know, as everybody said, it was a great event, which means we had a lot of people there, and you could certainly tell it from riding down the float on how deep it was and how long it was. And also to the vendors, the food trucks, and to the participants in the parade, I think we had a high number. Obviously, having the Sahuarita High School band there, when you have a band and a parade, made it extra special, but also to see all of the other businesses and churches that were involved with it certainly warmed my heart. So I really appreciate everybody's efforts. And as I mentioned at Call to the Public, our next meeting is Monday, January 27th, 2025. I'll wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah at the end, but can't believe we are at almost the precipice of 2025. And with that, Mr. Dilly, you have anything you'd like to report on?
Tonight represents our one and only meeting together before the holidays. So I know that, you know, staff is preparing for that, and, you know, many people are traveling this time of year. And if you guys are traveling as well, my hope and sincere hope is that we are very safe in those travels, and wish everybody in the public a very wonderful holiday season.
Thank you. And I failed to also, we were talking about Winterfest with Park and Rec, but I know all of the effort that went into cleaning up the fields from the tainted compost that was delivered to us. Please pass on to the facilities guys and within Park and Rec on how much we appreciate all the effort that went into cleaning that up, and your good communication with our recreation service organizations on. I've just heard wonderful things about keeping them in the loop, so really appreciate that effort. Next is item number 10, Madam Clerk.
Presentation, discussion, and adoption of the town's priorities and goals for the 2025 legislative session.
And our new management analyst, Mina Marcos, will be presenting this item. And good evening. I think you've said hello before, but I don't think you've presented before, have you? No, I have not. Okay. Well, I think you've seen enough meetings. We don't bite. We occasionally don't throw things. So you should be good.
He's well prepared. He's been thinking through this a lot.
That's right. They fed us tonight, so you know we're calm beast over here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. For the record, Mina Marcos, Management Analyst for the Town Manager's Office. This presentation has been prepared with the goal of outlining Sahuarita's legislative priorities for the upcoming 2025 Arizona legislative session. These proposed measures are a continuation of the previously approved 2024 legislative session priorities, and I would like to note that there have been a few minor changes from the draft priorities from the email that was sent out last week in the days leading up to the town council. First, there is a clarification of priority 7 to specify the inclusion of local roadway networks when advocating for a sustainable funding source to ensure a robust transportation system. Secondly, staff has made note that in 2024, the League of Arizona Cities and Towns supported the repeal of the sunset provision regarding the construction manager at risk procurement method. And finally, staff has eliminated priority 3 of the development of funding mechanisms for transportation, as it will now be encompassed in the active and general priority number 7. These changes will become clearer as we move further along in the presentation. Before diving into the legislative priorities, council members, there are 3 core overarching objectives that guide the town's priorities. Number 1, the protection of local control to ensure that local decisions remain at the hands of local government. Number 2, the protection of state shared revenue, ensuring that we preserve these funds to support our local community growth, public services, and infrastructure. Number 3, advocating on behalf of Sahuarita's needs as a growing community, ensuring that state policy aligns with the council's goals for sustainable growth and development. The main reason and purpose of having legislative priorities is to serve the needs of Sahuarita's residents, but more specifically, these priorities will provide direction from staff, and legislative tracking requires active responsiveness, and having a clear set of priorities helps staff respond to issues quickly as they occur. Legislative priorities also produce talking points when engaging with stakeholders and legislators, later providing a solid foundation for us as staff to build the reputation of the town as an up-and-coming legislative leader. The priorities are divided into 2 categories. The first category concerns active and general priorities. Number 1, the town of Sahuarita will actively seek its inclusion in stakeholder meetings to voice our concerns and submit public policy statements based on approved legislative priorities. By actively participating in stakeholder meetings, we can ensure Sahuarita's goals are heard and advocate for policies that align with our community-approved priorities, strengthening our voice in the legislative decision-making process. Number 2, provide input to stakeholders and the League of Arizona Cities and Towns on specific legislation that impacts Sahuarita and its residents. This priority, council members, focuses on actively monitoring and providing feedback on state legislation that impacts Sahuarita and its residents. By working closely with the League and stakeholders, we aim to guide and influence legislative decisions that affect funding, local control, and services. This collaborative approach ensures Sahuarita's voice is heard and its interests are protected in the larger and broader legislative landscape. Number 3, advocate for state funding opportunities, partnering with relevant agencies and stakeholders when appropriate. Town staff has been successful in submitting congressionally directed spending requests, and staff would like to replicate its success on the state level by getting on the radar of the legislature, but also to be part of groups that put forth slates of projects in front of the legislature for their appropriation approval. In advocating for the increase of state funding opportunities, we seek to help fund Sahuarita's general infrastructure projects and with direction from approval from council, of course. Number 4, collaborate with key stakeholders, legislators, and governor's staff to assess and advocate for reasonable consensus workforce housing policy ideas while protecting local control. This priority centers on engaging in discussions, being proactive, and focusing our efforts on affordable workforce housing policies that address our community's needs for our nurses, healthcare workers, service employees, firefighters, police officers, etc., while ensuring that local control remains a priority in decision-making. Number 5, actively engaging in discussion with the League of Arizona Cities and Towns and stakeholders on issues that would impact the protection of state shared revenues and rental tax replacement of municipalities. To remind Council, the legislature passed Senate Bill 1131 to barring cities and towns from levying taxes on landlord rental properties. This ban is set to take effect on December 31st, 2024. Ultimately, the bill repeals municipal taxes ranging from 1.5% to 3% that are levied against rental properties. The removal of the tax will result in an estimated $230 million budget shortfall, a number that is provided by the League, in 2025 for Arizona cities and towns. This issue is being currently discussed by jurisdictions around the state, and Sahuarita hopes to be a part of finding solutions to offset this impact by advocating for legislative measures to provide revenue streams or replacement funds, helping municipalities fill in the monetary gap. Number 6, prevent usurpation or encroachment of municipal power by continuing to interact with members of the legislature on issues that implicate local control. This priority, council members, aims to safeguard Sahuarita's ability to govern itself by preventing the state overreach that would undermine local control. By maintaining ongoing communication with legislators and the legislature, we advocate for policies and safeguard the authority of municipalities, ensuring that Sahuarita continues to hold power to address its own unique challenges and needs. Number 7, support a long-term sustainable funding source to ensure a robust statewide transportation system to include local roadway networks. This priority seeks to advocate for a sustainable funding source for transportation, ensuring that both statewide infrastructure and local roadways are adequately maintained, further supporting economic growth. Number 8, work with the State Land Department on the annexation of state land in and around Sahuarita to ensure long-term growth opportunities. Collaborating with the State Land Department on the annexation of state land in and around Sahuarita aims to provide the realization of growth potential to the east, which includes CCAP, our planning area. This can be accomplished by our collaboration with the state to help secure long-term growth opportunities in our community, supporting expansion and ensuring responsible and sustainable development in the years to come. Before I move on to specific issues, council members, as a reminder, Mr. Mayor and Council, up to this point, the priorities mirror those of 2024 with a bit of wordsmithing. Does council have any comments, thoughts, or opinions at this point before I move on?
Any input on what's been presented so far? Nope, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The second category concerns specific issues. And I would like to note that out of the 4 draft legislative priorities in this category, the first 2 are a continuation, again, from 2024. Number 1, the town of Sahuarita will advocate for legislation to allow the town clerk's office to post official notices and resolutions on the town website. This is an ongoing issue that has been explained by the town clerk's office. The town clerk's office is looking to the future for efficiencies and modernizations regarding the public notice process and supports additional advancements of notifying the public via website and social media channels. From my research, I was able to find that in 2022, HB 2339 would have allowed municipalities the option to post notices on the city's towns or cities or towns website. It initially failed committee. However, it was reconsidered and passed with an amendment limiting its impact only to Maricopa County. However, the bill stalled and was never received a final vote. Last year, the same measure was introduced as SB 1006. This was born out of a resolution introduced by Glendale. Once it became clear that this was headed down the same path, an amendment was made instead to focus on the publishing of adopted ordinances by exempting exhibits to an ordinance from publication as long as the location may be found on a printed, printed on an ordinance. This compromise legislation did make it to the finish line and was signed into law. However, SB 1006, council members, only deals with the publication of adopted ordinances, as opposed to official notices and resolutions, and thus the issue is still ongoing. It's also worth mentioning that the County Supervisors Association has placed this as a policy priority, and they are also in support of this. Number 2, advocating for the repeal of the sunset provision for the construction manager at-risk contracting on roadway construction. The CMAR project delivery method is an integral tool in public procurements for horizontal public infrastructure projects, which means transportation roadway construction undertaken by Arizona municipalities and special districts. Once the design firm is engaged, the owner brings in the construction manager to consult on design plans, facilitating optimization in the project's timeline and budget. Upon completion of the design, the project goes out to bid. Because the construction manager has deeper knowledge of the design requirements, it can become more of a competitive bid, resulting in cost savings to the owner. Arizona Senate Bill 1054, a bill that was passed last session, addressed the impending 2025 deadline by extending the sunset provision until December 31st, 2030. However, Sahuarita hopes to advocate for the repeal of the sunset provision altogether to allow this project method to continue on an ongoing basis, as opposed to just pushing the timeline back. Number 3, support the responsible development of mining projects to strengthen economic development in Sahuarita. Number 4, support the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality's efforts to advance mitigation of the FUD site to work collaboratively with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. ADEQ is currently moving forward with the U.S. Corps of Engineers on this site and is still in the remedial investigation feasibility study phase. However, it's important that we continue to collaborate in this relationship with both parties to ensure efficiency in the cleanup phase for the future development of Sahuarita.
Mina, and just for our new council members, if you're not familiar, the FUDS is the formerly used defense site, which is located near Walden Grove High School. So they have presented to us in the past from their, I think it was Los Angeles office, and we're deeply engaged as one of the 2 high priority projects in the state of Arizona, but this is one of them, and that's what the FUDS is, and that's an ongoing basis that we'll keep you updated on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Staff now will seek guidance from Council on the proposed legislative priorities, and with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Shane, do you have any wrap-up comments before going to the council for any feedback or questions?
Just that, as you know, how vitally important this kind of feedback is from the council as we look to prepare ourselves for the next legislative session that'll start the first of the calendar year. Very important for us to get the feedback from you so that when we do engage our congressional delegation and our state legislature, in this case the state legislature, we know that we're doing it in the confidence of having council already vetted these priorities and given us feedback so that we're all speaking off the same sheet of music.
Right, and as you might know, I serve on the executive committee of the league, so these are the things that we stay on top of. But also, as the next session rolls around, there's opportunities to serve on the subcommittees. There's various subcommittees that you can serve on to actually help set the legislative priority from the league's perspective going into the next legislative session. So with that, any other feedback or questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to adopt the 2025 legislative priorities as presented.
Do I have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mina. See, we didn't throw anything at you, did we? So, Now, the next time, we're going to really sharpen our knives. Item number 11 is our consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Looking for a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, item number 12.
Central Arizona Project CAP presentation.
Thank you. We have, tonight, we're joined by Karen Caesar, our board secretary for the CAP, who I've known for many, many years, and Mitch Baseski. I was practicing. I've known Mitch forever, but I only know him by Mitch. And I'm like, oh, crap, I got the last name now. Thank you for both for being here. I've had the pleasure of attending various dinners over the years on keeping up on the important work of our Central Arizona Project and what the water brings to our area, and really appreciate the long-standing relationship that we've had with both of you over the years. So thank you for being here. Please
Great.
continue.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council, I am Karen Caesar. I am the board secretary for CAP and one of your 4 elected Pima County representatives on the CAP board of directors. And first of all, may I congratulate Mr. Mayor and Madam Vice Mayor on your reelection to those positions. And we appreciate at CAP the relationship we have with the town of Sahuarita and the work we all do together. It's really important that we're all here in Southern Arizona working to continue to ensure that we have a reliable, renewable water resource for all the good things that we want to do in our communities. So we appreciate very much. And for the new council members in particular, hopefully this presentation will give you a little introduction to the Central Arizona Project and what it's about. You may know, you may not know. It's always a good opportunity to review, and so I will dive into it. Also, like I said, acknowledging Mitch Baseski is our Southern Arizona Outreach Coordinator, so he's really responsible for connecting us to these presentations, and I very much appreciate being here. So to kind of get a high-level overview, in Arizona, where does our water come from? Where are our water sources? A little over a third comes from the Colorado River, about 41% from groundwater. 18% is in-state rivers, and those are really more in the Phoenix area and the associated with the Salt River Project, because we don't have a lot of in-state rivers down here that actually have water in them. And a small percentage, 5%, is reclaimed or recycled water. And obviously that is a renewable supply that's got a great use for things like non-potable uses like turf uses, golf courses, and even recharge to replenish the groundwater. We're going to go over some CAP facts and figures. The Central Arizona Project really is an amazing piece of infrastructure that we have in our state. It is a 336-mile-long canal that goes just south of Lake Havasu and travels all the way here to Tucson. And frankly, our terminus right now is at the Pima Mine Road. I waved at it as I was driving by. It's getting ready to extend beyond that down to FICO and also to some Project Renews for some water recharge. So we are really, and you and Sahuarita are really at the end of the line of our long system. Along the way, when we take the water off the river, it's essentially sea level, and so we're approximately 3,000 feet above sea level. So along the way, we have to lift all that water up through 14 pumping plants. And also we have 10 siphons and 4 tunnels. And I'm always like tunnels are obvious. You have a canal, you have a mountain, you got to go through it. Siphons are a little bit more interesting. I think they're fascinating. You have a canal, you have a freeway. You have a canal, you have another river, and you have to go under it. And that's what siphons do. And our siphons are 21 feet diameter pipes. So I don't know, how big that circle is up there, but that looks like that might be about 21 feet. That's about the size of our pipes that go under I-10, go where our canal crosses, for example, the Verde River, the Salt River up in the Phoenix area, or any of the rivers where obviously we can't commingle and we can't block the river flow. Those are what our siphons do. Also along the way, we have just northwest of Phoenix, we have our major inline storage, which is Lake Pleasant, and that includes the New Waddell Dam and pumping plant, so we do generate electricity there. And, it takes a lot of electricity to lift all this water and carry it. We are one of the largest electric consumers of electricity in the state. So in addition to the water, we also have a big power portfolio, and that's been very interesting. We serve in the 3 counties, the Maricopa, which is the Phoenix metro area, Pinal, and Pima County. We serve approximately 80% of Arizona's population. So we bring the largest renewable water supply to most of our population. We have 11 of Arizona's 22 Native American Indian tribes are part of our service area and part of our customers. And it's a little bit over 50% goes to predominantly municipal industrial users, and about a little under that, about 46 goes to tribes. So that's primarily where our water goes right now. We are governed by a 15-member elected board of directors. We come from the different service areas. There's 10 from Maricopa County, 1 from Pinal, and 4 from Pima. And we serve 6-year unpaid terms, and they're staggered. So every 2 years, 5 seats come up. Maricopa County just had an election, and we had 4 of our 5 board members that were running were reelected, and we will be welcoming a new board member in January, and with a swearing-in ceremony, I think, next month, and then he'll start his term. And then in 2 years from now, the 4 Pima seats plus the 1 Pinal seat will be up for election. And I will just note at this point in time, it's the last time we had our election down here, it was in 2020, and it was COVID, and we had 4 qualified candidates for 4 seats, and so we were all basically deemed elected by the Pima County Board of Supervisors. We did not show up on the ballot. It was the easy button to reelection, and anybody who stood for election can appreciate that. That was the good news. The bad news is that as such a down ballot race that people don't even know we are an elected body, it will be 12 years will have elapsed, assuming we have a contested race in 2 years since the last time our office showed up on a ballot. Wow. And the way I put it, 30-year-olds would have never seen our office if they voted every year since they were able to vote at 18. So we really are down ballot and have a lot of work to do ahead of us. But but look for all that fun in 2 years. One of the big important functions of CAP, especially that means a lot to the town of Sahuarita, is the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District. And that was created in the mid-90s to help water providers and landowners comply with the Arizona groundwater management laws. If you did not have a CAP allocation at the time that those were being handed out, if you didn't exist or barely existed as a small town, Sahuarita being one of those towns, a lot of towns in West Valley and East Valley Phoenix, you did not get a CAP allocations. There's no more allocations. There's no more water to hand out. So you did not then have that renewable water supply. Without that renewable water supply, it was very difficult / impossible to meet the Groundwater Management Act, assuring that you had a 100-year assured water supply. So the CAGRD was invented and created by the state legislature and given to the CAP as something to do, which we appreciate, to basically create the district, collect money from the people that voluntarily join the CAGRD, and then we go find water and replenish it on the behalf of our members. And that way, developers and member lands and member service areas, cities, towns, and developers can demonstrate compliance with the Groundwater Management Act, and it does allow communities to grow and still be in compliance. And so it's a financially separate entity. But it is governed. It's governed by our board of directors. As board secretary, I also serve as the chair of the CAGRD and Underground Storage Committee. So it's near and dear to my heart, and it's also very important because it really is the mechanism that allows a lot of growth in communities that would otherwise not be able to demonstrate that they have a 100-year assured water supply, and being able to you still pump your groundwater, but you have to prove that you have the 100 years, and then people pay the money, member lands, member service areas, and then, like I said, we go and find the water and recharge it. A little bit, there are two types of members. There's member service areas, that's like the town of Sahuarita, towns or private water companies. We have 23 currently enrolled, and then member lands are subdivisions, and there's over 1,200 of those. So it just depends on the type of development and community you are. And if you're a member service area, you pay your dues annually, and they end up showing up on, just as part of the, I'm going to look to Mitch, part of the tax rolls, or that's member lands. On tax and member service areas, that's part of your town budget and whatever so there's different ways that people end up paying, either one way or the other, members end up paying. It gets a little confusing because a lot of people don't realize this. It goes back on your tax bill sometimes if you're part of the member lands. But again, it's one of those things where it's a kind of a in the weeds function of CAP, but also very important for our ability to grow. One of the things that we do every 10 years is we have to develop a 10-year plan of operation that says basically how much water do we think we're going to need in the next 10 years and next 100 years, and where do we think we're going to go get it? That plan has to be reviewed and approved by the Department of Water Resources. The board just approved at our October meeting, which was held here in Pima County, the board approved the 10-year plan of operation for submittal to the Department of Water Resources. That's our next step. And then they will take a look at that this year. And again, we won't go into the details of it, but there's a lot of uncertainty about water, resources, water, groundwater. There's our reconsultation on the Colorado River. There's been a lot of legislation that talks about alternative pathways to assured water supply, ability for member lands to become member service areas. We were planning in the most uncertain environment in a long time. And so one of the things that we had to do was, we put together the plan, it's going forward, but we fully expect within about 2 years we're going to be revisiting a lot of the things because we are statutorily obligated to have this and have it turned into DWR by a certain time frame. There was no waiting for a lot of things to get sorted out, and that's just, and that's part of our business that we're all in is moving forward without having all the answers all neatly or sorted out. So that's one of the things that we're working on. The big thing everybody, of course, is talking about in the Colorado River Basin is what are we going to do with the impending expiring of all the rules that we've been working under with since 2007, which expire at the end of 2026. We are on, as Mayor Murphy said, we're on the verge of 2025. The time is going by very fast. Within the basin, there are 7 basin states, and there's 4 upper basin and 3 lower basin states. We're obviously in the lower basin states. There's about 5 million acres of farmland, 40 million people, major cities, just lots of power generation, national parks, wildlife. So much is happening, and so many people depend on the Colorado River. Mitch and I were just in Las Vegas last week at the Colorado River Users Association Conference. It's one of the annual happenings where everybody from that's involved in the Colorado River gets together. There was a lot of discussion. You've probably seen some press about this. We're not, the upper basin and the lower basin are not necessarily in agreement about what should be done, and so we're in the thick of that right now. What we do know right now today is obviously drought and climate change result in a smaller Colorado River. When they handed out the allocations, it was a very wet period and everybody had a lot more water. We know we're all going to be having to live with a smaller river, and so this is really where the discussions are all happening about how do we share, how do we all take a little bit of the cuts and share the pain versus since Arizona is the junior priority on the Colorado River and CAP is the junior priority within Arizona. One scenario is CAP goes to 0. We have no water. That is obviously unacceptable. That's unacceptable to Arizona. It's unacceptable to the West. And so that's one of the things that our board and our staff are working very hard on is recognizing that just play of the priority system is not an acceptable way to go forward in reconsultation. And we're having to work very hard and make some pretty strong statements to ensure that people understand that we need to have a more equitable sharing. This goes back to, this is just, sorry, too much going forward. just going back to this one, just the Colorado River flow, this graph shows a little bit of how, what's been happening at the Colorado River flow. 118-year average, 14.7 million acre feet. The last 24 is 12.4 million acre feet. So there's so much science and there's so much hydrology that is going into trying to figure out, how much water do we have to divvy up to begin with? And so you can just start to see that we've had some very, very low years, very dry years, and a couple, recently halfway decent years, but even a couple decent years has not gotten us out of the drought and the position that we're in.
Karen, can you just touch on acre feet really quickly on how that's calculated just for
Oh, yeah,
everyone?
an acre foot is because we're talking about so much water, it's basically the amount of water that it takes to cover an acre 1 foot deep. And it is a number I should have off the top of my head, 326,000 gallons of water. So again, when we're talking about things like leaving water in Lake Mead, which is obviously has a many hundred square mile surface area, you can't talk about millions. You would have zeros running all the way from here to the freeway. So acre feet is the unit of measurement that is used to talk about how much water there is available and how we're sharing it. And so thank you for that question. This is a slide that's important. Some of the other thing that's happening is we're getting good snowpack but bad runoff. One of the consequences of a hotter, drier environment that we have is that the ground itself is hotter and drier. And so even when there is good snowpack, it's like the sponge that, when things start melting, when the snow starts melting, the first thing it's doing is it's being absorbed into the ground before it starts running off. So even, so we've got a deficit, a soil moisture deficit in the West. And so it's just one of the many, things that are contributing to the smaller river and the challenges that we're in. And you can see, for example, in 2024, this year, we had a snowpack that was 114% above average, but but our runoff was only at 83%. And so it's just more of the environment and the science that that we're dealing with, trying to figure out, because we track snowpack every month. We get a little snow chart, and it's this much, and we're ahead, we're behind, and we cheer or we cry or whatever. But the fact is that we've got a situation because of just temperatures across the West that we're still playing catch up, and so again, just contributes to more of our challenges. In 2007, we started working on, there were interim guidelines that was like, this is how we're going to operate the river. And it was getting some storage in Lake Mead, coordinating the operations of Lake Powell and Lake Mead, which are the two major reservoirs. Mead is our yardstick in the lower basin, Powell is the yardstick and reservoir for the upper basin. But what was happening was in 2018, 2019, it became very apparent that the lake levels were plummeting, and there was, all manner of bad things were going to happen. Power generation was going to be impacted. The dreaded dead pool was possibly happening, which is basically in Lake Mead, where water wasn't even flowing out on the dam, threatening the Colorado River, threatening the fish, threatening the wildlife, threatening obviously power generation and our water supply. So on top of that, we started working on layering on other things. And we had the drought contingency plan, the 500+ plan, a lot of basically, in the lack of a better term, spending lots of money for people to leave their water in the lake to keep our elevations up. We've been very successful at that. So between doing operations like that, which primarily Arizona and CAP and our customers really led the way, and a couple years of halfway decent snowpack, we got us out of our immediate crisis, which has been great because it's allowed us to turn and pivot and really look for the new consultation of the new guidelines and not have to deal in crisis mode at the moment. So we do have a little breather on that. But we are operating in a Tier 1 shortage this year. This chart explains that if we have full supply, we had excess water, we have no excess water. The ag pool, that was for agriculture, mostly in Pinal County, that's been eliminated. The NIA is another source of lower priority water that's been impacted. And what we're really left is trying to not impact our Indian customers in our municipal, industrial, and also the priority, that little orange bar at the bottom is the very high priority water users, mostly on the Colorado River. But you can see in this with the big gray, you know, that's all the reductions that we have taken and are living under right now, which is, you know, over 500,000 KAF, which is 1,000 acre feet. It's a lot of water. So Arizona's been really doing its part. Every community's been doing its part. And when I talk in Southern Arizona, I'm always so proud about the work that we do in Southern Arizona writ large for water conservation. And we really do lead the way. And it's really key, and it is really helping the whole system, even though because we're at the end of the pipeline. The conservation efforts in Lake Mead can be shown here. And basically the big takeaway you can see, the 7.5 million acre feet is the allocation that we have in the lower basin, and we've never quite taken all that. But what's really key is you look at the big blue, you know, in the chart there. That's what Arizona has done in voluntary conservation in Lake Mead. So the efforts writ large of people, you know, City of Tucson's done it. A lot of municipalities, a lot of tribes, a lot of different people have left large amounts of water in Lake Mead, and that conservation has really kept us out of dire straits and allowed us to look through what we're doing, you know, what's next, to where are we going, without dealing in a crisis of the moment. And
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a quick question. Karen, could you go back to that graph that you showed? Thank
That
you.
one,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you. So, I mean, to the uninformed person, just somebody driving across Hoover Dam, you know, and looking at Lake Mead year after year after year, it seems like that white mineral layer keeps getting bigger and bigger. So it's great to see that we're doing something here in Arizona to make a contribution to protect that resource. Are you seeing that equally at, you know, with our other state partners, Colorado and Nevada, or is it just us? I mean, how have those discussions been playing out? Because I'm sure it's pretty adversarial and confrontational sometimes. What are you seeing?
That's a great question. So Lake Mead is the storage reservoir for the lower basin, so that's Nevada, California, and Arizona. And Arizona, by far and away, has been doing the most to leave water in Lake Mead. California is leaving some water, and they have a bigger allocation. Nevada's water, again, when CAP allocations were being handed out, Nevada really didn't exist as a state. Las Vegas didn't exist. There were no Bellagio fountains. They were, you know, and they have a very small Colorado River allocation, of which they return 100% of their water to the lake. So, you know, so sometimes Vegas gets a bad rap, but they actually are very efficient with their water. They take it, they use it, they treat it, they clean it, and they return it all to the lake because they, you know, so. You know, so Arizona's definitely doing the most, but California has stepped up and has started doing their part. And right now, we are getting along just wonderfully with our lower basin counterparts. And that wasn't always the case with California. But California realized a few years ago that, you know, they really needed to not be like against Arizona, that we needed to be working together in the lower basin. The challenges that we're having are with the upper basin right now, and their storage reservoir is Lake Powell, and the hydrology is so different because Lake Powell is essentially at the downstream end of all the rivers in Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Utah. You know, collects in Lake Powell, whereas our storage reservoir is up at the top of our system, and, you know, for the most part, the water flows down. We take it off the river and distribute it. But I'll get a little tiny bit into the challenges that we're having going forward and where we are with our neighbors in the upper basin.
What's the ultimate goal for Lake Mead then? Is there a replenishment goal, or is it really just to stop the bleeding in terms of what we're seeing there?
Well, we definitely want to keep the elevations. I mean, right now we are in what we call a tier 1 shortage, and we can live with that. We've been living with that reductions for a very long time, and we know how to do that. The goal in Lake Mead is to avoid a tier 3 shortage where we really start to impact power generation and our water supply. So that's our goal. We would have to have, you know, many consecutive years, I have no idea, more than 5, maybe 10 of the snowpack that we had a few years ago to get our elevations up to where that white bathtub ring was no longer visible. It might be quite a while before we have that. So really, we want to manage Lake Mead to avoid the lower elevations in that and the bad things that happen. And with Lake Powell, they have some similar issues. They've got Glen Canyon Dam. There are bypass pipes, and there's power generation there. Lower elevations impact that negatively. But the upper basin is required by the Colorado River Compact to send to the lower basin, from Lake Powell to Lake Mead, a certain amount of water every year. That's that varies slightly. 8 million acre feet, more or less, depending on a few things. But that's really, I think, the goal is everyone's trying to manage both those reservoirs to make sure that we don't get into the lower elevations and all the bad things that happen. Yeah, absolutely. So this goes back to, where are we going with all this good news? The post-2026 Colorado River operations are, the talks and that are actively happening. They were starting in Vegas. They've been going on for quite a while. The Bureau of Reclamation is really the boss of the whole river system. So it's the federal, the federal government comes in. And one of the things that they are doing is going through the NEPA process, or the National Environmental Protection Act. So they have to go through looking at alternatives of different operation scenarios and evaluate them for all their environmental impacts and everything. And so the Bureau of Reclamation just released a list of the alternatives that they were going to look at and study in this NEPA process. And a lot of people weighed in. We weighed in. The lower basin had an alternative. Tribes had an alternative. NGOs, environmental groups, lots of upper basin. Everybody had ideas. They were all kind of feeding them into the Bureau, and they just came out with their scoping report and their list of things they're going to be evaluating, or they say they're going to be evaluating. But sadly, with that, the list of alternatives did not include the lower basin alternative. This is one that was that we came up with. I will tout CAP's leadership in our technical and scientific and policy arenas, but we worked really hard with our colleagues to come up with a very fair way to distribute a lot of these reductions. That Arizona was still taking a lot, but we needed to share it, and we needed to share some of the cuts equitably with the upper basin and the lower basin. And that was not included in the list of things that the Bureau of Reclamation said they were going to study. And in fact, we had our board had an emergency meeting a week ago today. Wow, it's been a busy week. And passed a resolution calling for the United States to do two things in particular. One was include the lower basin alternative as study it. We're not even saying pick it, we're just saying study it. And also that they also acknowledged that complying with the Colorado River Compact needed to be an important part of all the alternatives. Neither of those things were included, and that is pretty serious, and we are very concerned. And we as an elected board, we're kind of unique of all the water managing agencies in the whole Colorado River Basin, that we are popularly elected to represent the taxpayers and the citizens of 3 county service areas. And so we felt as a board very strongly about issuing a statement that calling on the federal government to do a couple things. And we'll see if they listen to us, but we made the point. So that's really where we are, and this is really summarizing that's what we believe, that that all these impacts of the hotter, drier world, the declining hydrology, the less water, needs to be shared by everybody that benefits from the river. And currently, the upper basin's position is, lower basin, you do it. We're good. We can't do any more. And that we disagree with that. So we're heading into some pretty intense times and pretty important times, and I can just assure you that, like I said, our leadership at CAP is phenomenal. The board is very dedicated, and we're working in partnership with Arizona Department of Water Resources and our colleagues in California and Nevada, all to try to put forward, science-based, fair, balanced alternatives that do honor the compact and help share this, share the smaller river in a way that's equitable, and so that's where we are. There's a lot of long-term solutions. I want to wrap this up really quickly. We need to find new water supplies. We need to continue to conserve. Reuse, recycled water is definitely a part of our portfolio that has to expand. And also recovery. We've been storing lots of water underground. Some of it's to pay back the aquifer for the CAGRD. Some of it's water banking, essentially, and there's been a lot of that going in the ground, but we also have to be ready to pull it out of the ground when and if it's necessary, and that is also a very capital-intensive infrastructure effort to get the wells, put in and get ready. And then how do you transport that water, and how do you treat that water? And there's a lot going on. So I'm going to close on a really exciting note, though. One of the things that the board is championing and we are moving forward with up in Phoenix, bad news, but it's going to be fabulous, and so people from Southern Arizona will want to come up and see it, is we're in design with a new water education center. And with that, one of our big goals is just trying to develop and inspire that next generation of water leaders. A lot of us that have been working in water for many, many years, been working in water many, many years. And when I saw those two lovely young ladies that were leading the Pledge of Allegiance here, we really want to make sure that our kids start understanding where water comes from, the challenges of water in the desert. And we really hope that our Water Education Center is a place where kids can go, adults can go, we can host meetings there, and conferences and things that will really get people excited and informed in a way that's very accessible to them about water in Arizona, and particularly about the CAP, because it is I will end where I started. It's a very amazing piece of infrastructure. It's so vital to all of our success in Arizona, and the ability to continue to bring renewable water supplies is key to today, tomorrow, and 100 years from now. And so hopefully the Water Education Center will be a bright spot and a place where people can go and get inspired and learn more about it. And there's many ways to stay informed. Know Your Water News, our website, our board meetings are live streamed, so you don't have to go up to Phoenix to participate. But we always welcome you if you would like to do that. So I know this has covered a lot in a very short amount of time, but available for questions, and I thank you.
Well, thank you, and I know I'm excited personally about the Project Renews, as well as FICO and Freeport's, 2 36-inch water lines, trying to eventually extend the terminus from Pima Mine Road deeper into Green Valley. So I know a lot of effort's gone into it, and we're in an active water management area, so I know there's all kinds of discussions about having more of those throughout the state. But thanks for the presentation. Any questions to my right? Nope. Any questions to my left? Nope.
And we're always there as a resource, so I thank you all for your kind attention this evening.
Thanks, Karen.
And happy
Appreciate
holidays,
you
everybody.
Happy holidays to you as well. Item number 13, Madam Clerk.
Public hearing, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance 2024-177, amending Title 18, zoning Chapter 18.2, rural and residential zones related to the keeping of fowl in rural and residential zones.
Thank you. And Mr. Barrett, Nathan Barrett, is our Community Development Deputy Director, will lead us in this presentation and discussion. And he taught Mina everything he knows since he's was in that previous position. So great job, Nathan.
I've held back a little bit because I do still need some leverage, right? Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tonight we're going to be talking about a text amendment to the zoning code regarding the keeping of fowl. This is the chicken bill.
Chicken bill.
Yeah. As I give this presentation, I will try to watch my language and not use any foul language tonight.
Our next presentation will be given by Mina. No.
Okay, so quick background. The reason for this zoning code amendment is the passage of HB 2325. It was signed by the governor back in May. It requires cities and towns to allow the raising of fowl in all single-family residential zones, but it does allow cities and towns to implement certain regulations to prevent any sort of chicken apocalypse that could happen if, the chicken are just wild and running around and, like chickens do, with or without their heads. So part of this zoning code amendment brings us into conformity and then also takes advantage of some of those additional regulations that we can implement. So the requirement for HB 2325 is that we have to allow any single-family detached residential lot to raise up to 6 fowl in the back or side yard. Our current code already allows far more than that. In our rural residential zones, which are RH and GR1, we allow 40 small animals per acre. In R1 through R5, it's up to 24 small animals, but we do not allow any small animals currently in the MH zone. MH zone is mobile and manufactured homes, but those are single-family lots. So according to HB 2325, we will have to allow for up to 6 chickens, fowl, in that zone. So the biggest change in this zoning code text amendment is allowing those 6 small animals in the MH zone.
Nathan, with the CCNRs, can you just touch on what trumps each other?
CCNRs trump town code.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
So if Rancho or Quail Creek or Madera Highlands doesn't allow chickens, this zoning code amendment is not going to change that.
Thanks.
Some of the additional regulations that we are looking to implement relate to requiring structures to house these small animals. We've added a number of requirements. You see those, 5 red bullet points. One of those requirements is a setback of 20 feet from property line. You'll notice there's an asterisk there. Currently, in the current town zone, that's the only requirement for a chicken coop, and that setback is 25 feet. However, the new state law 2325 says that if we're going to require a setback for a chicken coop, it can only be 20 feet, so that does have to change. The other 4 bullet points are new regulations in regard to the keeping of chicken coops. HB 2325 also allows us to implement regulations regarding composting of manure and storing feed in insect-proof and rodent-proof containers. The reason Foghorn Leghorn is up here also is a reminder to me to let you know that HB 2325 does allow us to prohibit roosters. Our current town code does prohibit roosters except in those rural zones. So there is no change in our position vis-a-vis roosters. So public notice, put it in the Green Valley News, got no responses, took it to Planning and Zoning Commission. They recommended approval at their November 4th, 2024 meeting. Again, this zoning code is fairly minor and brings us into conformity with this new state law.
Thank you, and this requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing right now. Seeing no movement, I will close the public hearing. Are there any questions for staff? If not, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I move to adopt ordinance 2024-177.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If seeing none, all in favor signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Nathan.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you're not going very far for Madam Clerk to read item number 14.
Public hearing, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance 2024-178, amending Title 18 zoning, Chapters 18.90 specific plans and 18.91 rezoning procedures.
Thank you. Nathan, please continue.
This is similar to the last one in that it is inspired by a recent state law that was passed. Different from the last one in that there are no fun puns that Anna and I could come up with. We racked our brains and came up with no jokes. So this one's going to be really dry. I apologize. This is inspired by, so to speak, SB 1162, which was signed by the governor in April of this year. It requires cities and towns to process rezoning applications within 180 days, and requires that our town code have that time limit in it. In addition, this particular zoning code update has some additional cleanup regarding protest petitions, which I'll get to momentarily. So there's actually two time frames in SB 1162. The first says that we have to take 30 days, a maximum of 30 days, to determine if a rezoning application is administratively complete. Our current town code says we can do it in 5 days. So we are not making any changes to that. We're going to still limit ourselves to that 5-day time frame for determining if a rezoning application is administratively complete. SB 1162, however, also says that there's the same 30-day time limit when a zoning application gets kicked back for being incomplete. When it gets resubmitted, then the clock starts again at 30 days. Our zoning code currently doesn't have anything about that, so we threw in some language about the same 5-day review period applying to a resubmittal as well. That 180-day time limit that I mentioned, that kicks in, that starts once the application is determined administratively complete. State law allows us to do a one-time extension if it's at the request of the town, or really any number of extensions at the request of an applicant. So we've written that into this, this code amendment. One big piece of information here about the way we wrote this code amendment is that we did not refer directly to the 180 days. Rather, we referred to the time limit in ARS, whatever the section was. So that if the legislature next year decides, 180 days was too long, too short, we're going to tweak it up, we're going to tweak it down, we don't have to keep going back over and over again, updating what our zoning code says. It just says in conformity with the time limit in ARS, whatever. Finally, I had mentioned some code cleanup regarding protest petitions. There are two processes that allow for a protest petition from the public. That's rezonings and specific plans. Both of those processes are the same, except in our zoning code, they're using different language. It's just kind of grown organically that way. So even though they're the exact same process, the language is not exactly the same. In addition, a year or so ago, there were some minor changes in state law. Didn't mandate a change at the time, but the language that we have in our town code, in our zoning code about protest petitions is out of date. So we're bringing both of those sections, the rezoning and the specific plan sections about protest petitions, bringing them up into conformity with town code, and then making sure that both processes use the exact same identical language, whether we're talking about protesting rezonings or protesting specific plans. So, same thing, we put an ad in the Green Valley News, got no responses or comments from the public, presented the same information to Planning and Zoning at their November 4th meeting, and they had recommended approval.
Thank you. Any questions for staff before I open up the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing open. Would anybody like to address us on this particular issue? My daughter, you want to address us now? Seeing no movement, I will declare the public hearing closed and open it up for a motion, please.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2024-178.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Nathan. Item number 15, Madam Clerk.
Discussion and possible direction to update the rules and procedures for the town council, boards, committees, and commissions.
Thank you, and you will be leading this discussion, so please continue.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The item before you this evening proposes a few changes to the council's rules of procedures, and tonight we're just seeking direction. for changes that you would like made, if any. Those changes will be presented at a future meeting with a resolution for adoption. I'll begin with a brief background. The rules and procedures are a collection of council-driven policies governing meetings and professional conduct of the town council, boards, and commissions. The first drafts of the rules was reviewed and discussed during a study session held last September. After the September discussions, changes were made to the draft and brought back to council for adoption in October. In October, the council adopted some of the changes, but not all. Council requested that those that were not adopted be put on hold for further discussion. And tonight we're bringing back those held items for further discussion and introducing a new topic. The first topic that we are considering tonight is to remove call to the public from board and commission meeting agendas.
And
So
Lisa, can I
just
just
to
pause?
note-
Can I just pause you there? Just
Absolutely.
take note for the new council members. This is just for boards and commissions, not for the town council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This change really aims to alleviate confusion and frustration that may arise when members of the public are unclear about which public body to address for help. And since our boards and commissions are mainly advisory, the town council is the authoritative body and is the public body that the public should address. Removal will also make meetings easier to manage for the chairperson. The chair can focus more on the meeting's business and less on managing public comment while maintaining open meeting law compliance. Yes, sir.
Mayor and council, really the genesis for this idea is that the council is the body that sets in place the workload for your commissions and committees. It's not the other way around.
Right.
So with this change in how we move forward, it's less likely that the tail is wagging the dog as opposed to, the council really establishing the work plan, sending down to your boards and commissions issues that you need to have addressed and brought forward back to you for recommendation. So the public will over time learn that this is the body that they need to come to if they have concerns or questions in the public about services or programs, what's happening well, what's not happening well. They'll come here as opposed to thinking that they need to go directly to your Parks and Rec Commission or to the Planning and Zoning Commission,
Right.
or in the future if we have other commissions. So,
Well, an example would be tonight about solid waste, like the woman came to. You wouldn't want her going to P&Z talking about that. It has no authority, and we wouldn't even know what the concern is without them coming to
that's right.
us.
So that was really the genesis and impetus behind this.
I just want for clarification, we're still allowing them to speak on the topic that's on their agendas. So if the public wants to have a discussion, if we're naming a new park, they are still allowed to come and talk to the commission about that topic.
Our meetings are public meetings. The commission meetings are public meetings. And so if they have something agendized for public discussion, the public is able to come in and speak to that item.
Okay.
This is strictly the call to the public part where it's not an agendized item. It's this body that the public should bring
Yep.
those issues to.
Just for clarification. Thank you, Shane.
Yep, thanks. And would you want to, okay, continue. Oh, no, would you want to pause for kind of feedback on that last particular item? Everybody was okay with it? Because this is not going to be a vote for tonight. It's just for direction. For
So
direction.
I can either take the direction as we move through each item, or we can do it at the end.
Yeah.
It's up
probably safer to
to-
do it as we hit on the item. if
It's up
there's
to
any
council.
discussion. Everybody okay with call to the public going away from commissions and boards? Yep. That's a check for you.
Thank you. The second change is addition of language to clarify how boards will interact with one another and the public. The current language is on the left of the screen, and on the right-hand side is the proposed language. The bold language is what was added, and I won't read it. However, the goal of the proposed language is to establish clear guidelines for how members of boards and commissions and the town council should interact with each other and with the public during meetings. The added language really emphasizes creating a respectful and professional environment where meetings can be conducted successfully. To further maintain a respectful environment, harassment is specifically defined using the language found in the Personnel Policy Manual that was adopted by Council. And essentially, the addition of the courtesy language just seeks to set clear expectations for respectful interaction among board members and with the public, while also addressing harassment by adopting a clear definition from the Personnel Policy Manual.
Thank you. John, can you weigh in a little bit on this? Because I know there was a case up in the Phoenix area, I can't remember, where they escorted a woman out, a call to the public, and so you can, and I obviously I allow a lot of latitude, but we also have very respectful residents, even during our fun Vulcan time. But
yeah, Mayor and Council, that was City of Surprise, and there, at the time, Surprise's rule was you couldn't criticize council or staff at the call to the public. And the problem with that is that the call to the public contemplates criticism, particularly of the council, and arguably the staff, where maybe there would be an entitlement to respond either the staff person or the council. And so I can't tell you what the outcome is, but it's sort of problematic because it was content-based. This is sort of behavioral.
Okay.
These ruling about harassment or hostility or intimidation, that's more on the behavior side than it is on the sort of content side. But I think that removing the person is really what caused the problem.
Right.
It wasn't shutting off her mic or gaveling her down or clarifying what she was allowed to say, even though that rule probably shouldn't have been adopted in the first place, in my opinion. But so I think it's really would be your reaction to the person, short of removing them, unless they had took some action or had some behavior that was disruptive.
Right, and if you could advise, because I know in Pima County they had an incident where somebody came and said, y'all should be in front of a firing squad and shot. So would that sort of fall under that?
A little bit of hostility there,
okay.
I imagine. Again, some of that's hyperbole.
Right.
So you have to just, and I think we have to take it on a case-by-case basis. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all or a single rule. You probably saw I think it was in New Jersey, the community that banned. The flag, the American. They called it, props or something.
Yes.
And so some guy got up there and he had a flag and they removed him.
Right.
Those you don't want to go overboard. You want to maintain decorum. If somebody becomes disruptive, whatever that looks like, then there's a sort of, we've talked about this, there's sort of a de-escalation. But if the person continues to be disruptive, then arguably we could remove them. There's a case in the Ninth Circuit that, believe it or not, is out of Santa Cruz, California, where a guy gave a Nazi salute and he was removed. And the Ninth Circuit upheld that removal because that was just considered disruptive. So it's really case by case.
Right.
But I think this language works. And again, it's short of, removing the person if they stop doing what they're not supposed to do.
Right. Well, I like your example. It's more decorum than it is content-based, because basically anybody should be able to say whatever they want to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, to a degree. Again, if it's intimidation, it's hostility, if it's a threat. If somebody comes up and says, I want to shoot you right now, that's pretty much an assault.
Right.
Under Arizona law, it's a crime. So I shouldn't say pretty much. I would argue that's a crime. So that's different than saying, you should all be shot by the firing squad. That's a little different. It's not a direct threat. So I think it's very case by case, and we'll make sure that if that does occur here, that we'll manage it, depending on what the activity is by the speaker.
And are we planning on putting this on any of the agendized, maybe adding some of that? We did before on, I think it was signs or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose you could put this language, on each agenda, near, around where the call to the public, there is language on the agenda currently that talks about, I think.
Yeah, about responding and.
I have a couple things.
Yes.
So when it says threats, people threaten us that they're not going to vote for us all the time.
That's not a threat.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, when we say threat, we mean threat
Violence.
of bodily
Bodily harm.
injury.
Okay, that's
Threat
why I
of
just
harm.
wanted to clarify that.
We're talking about basically bodily harm
Okay.
type thing. I mean, I'm going to tell your mother how you voted is really not a great threat.
I just
Unless-
wanted
depending
to
on your
make
mother,
sure.
of course.
I just want to make sure. And then I just wanted for clarification, when we talk about public bodies, we're talking about the audience and the council and the staff. Like, we are talking that this is what we will
Abide by.
Yeah.
here in this room type of thing.
Right. So this language sort of works both ways. So the council should abide by it as well. Shouldn't, demean a speaker. This council doesn't do that, but I've seen it in other places sometimes where a speaker or a member of the council doesn't like what a speaker says, or the speaker directly criticizes the council member, and then when the council member gets the chance to speak back, it's not defending him or herself, it's going and attacking the speaker. So I would suggest that this is probably good behavior for the council as well as the public.
Thank you. Diane?
So I believe it was me that had issue with some of the behavior that sometimes manifested on the council, and it was my position that there should be no ungentle language, otherwise known as cursing, no F-bombs. I could consider that decorum unfitting for a council, or, really cussing at somebody, whether it's speaking with that kind of passion about a position or addressing anybody in the audience or another council member.
John, do you want to touch on that as far as from elected bodies to elected body?
Amongst yourselves, there's a tool called the point of personal privilege. And so if someone up here says something either amongst yourselves or to the audience, a council member who's essentially either the target of the insult or is offended by the comment can say, point of personal privilege. And that stops the meeting, full track, and it allows that person to comment on the prior comment that it's out of decorum or that it's, not consistent with, the meeting decorum language in the council policy or something like that. So it's a tool that's used infrequently, but it's really the intent is to call put that person on the spot, call that person on the spot and say point of personal privilege, and everything stops at that point, and then the person who does that has the sort of right to make a comment about the prior comment.
And for either Shane or you or me, if that continues, who should interject? Who has the power to interject if that conduct?
The definition of mayor is you're running the meeting.
You have the gavel.
Yeah, you have the gavel, you run the meeting. And like I said, there's sort of a de-escalation process.
I
Taking a
recess the
break.
meeting.
Yeah, recess the meeting, let people cool off before, removing, the council, there really is no tool to remove another council member from the meeting.
Right.
So, if the person's going to be disruptive, the tool could be to adjourn the meeting and re-adjourn it the next day or something like that.
It's amazing what a 5-minute recess or a 10-minute recess can do. I've seen very, very agitated people either between the audience and council or amongst council, and that gavel with a recess does wonders. Most of the time that works. And so, but I wanted to just, John, to Councilmember Priolo's point, this language would assist a council member who is experiencing that kind of feeling in response to something that was said by a colleague on the council. This would help with that.
Correct. This this, like I said, governs not only the public's communication to you and your communication to the public, but the communication amongst you.
Right.
So this is really the point of personal privilege language, that if you know, you don't have to quote it in it, but if the person who's the target of something could say, this violates our policy on meeting decorum.
Right.
I believe that, you know, and I'd like an apology, or, you know, or I'd like a retraction or something. Or, you know, a stop.
Right.
And you've probably seen it every once in a while when the House
Yeah, in Congress,
has these pretty heated debates, and then there's sort of a demand for apology, and you never get the demand, you
Right.
never get the apology, you get some sort. Anyway, so that's kind of the tool to really focus on the person who's basically misbehaving, not acting like a gentleman or a gentle lady, you know. And again, the decorum, I think, is very important in a meeting because it keeps things professional and it keeps the respect up. And once it devolves into sort of a shouting match, you got to take a break.
Right, right. Thank you.
And Shane and I will be sort of like,
Right.
you know,
Diane?
gavel.
So why can't you just use simple language that we should act like gentlemen and gentlewomen? Both-
Well, that's I think specific.
And not, you know.
Yeah, that's subjective.
It's very subjective.
And so specific language is better because it
no
tells us
cursing,
how.
No foul language, no.
Well, this
Well, that's
tells
kind of
us
what
that.
does it, remarks,
Yeah,
slurs.
this does that. You know,
negative
hostile,
stereotypes,
belittling, graphic content, hostility, you know, aversion. So, yeah, it specific is better than just some, you know, because my definition of a gentleman may be different than yours.
Right.
I mean, you know, sometimes you see on the news that the hunt is on for two gentlemen who murdered, you know, something.
Right.
Really, that's a pretty poor you know. So again, it depends on how you want to use the language. But this is better because it tells you specifically the type of behavior that's expected of you, both as the public and as the council.
Right. Okay. So Ed, you have to stop swearing at me. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Everybody okay with that?
I just want more clarification.
You're not, oh, go ahead.
When we speak about public bodies, again, it is here. As elected officials, I am not this way at all. But in my own personal social media and such, I am not required to follow this as an elected official. I'm not saying that I would, I'm not looking to
I've
do that.
never heard you swear in your whole life. so
I'm
I
just
don't know.
want to look for clarification on this, that, is this being held, is that what, and I'm not opposed, I'm just making sure I clearly understand.
Well, you do have, in your policy book, you do have an ethics code and sort of a code of conduct that talks about your interactions with the public or in public to not bring discredit, I'm paraphrasing, not bring discredit on the town. So even if you're not in your official capacity and you're at the grocery store and you lay into someone because they cut you off with their cart, that's probably violates the code of conduct or ethics
Right.
behavior. So you do
Good to
have,
know.
as an elected official, you do have
I'm going to have to
an
curtail my
additional sort
derogatory.
of,
And cutting people off on the road.
you know, additional standard of care, I guess. Or
Yeah.
not
You
care,
can't
but
take that hat
behavior.
off, really.
Yeah, I was
Very
just,
different.
like I said, just
What
for like
you do in
clarification,
your-
I'm not seeking to do that
Yeah, well,
in public.
But what you do behind closed doors or behind four walls, unless the police have to show up, nobody probably is
But in public. Okay,
cares.
thank you.
But, I mean, people, you know, elected officials get in trouble for what they do on the internet. I mean, social media, so it's out there, and you're out there as an elected official, and in this town, you're not obscure. They know who you are.
Thank you.
So it's just best practice to,
Yep, I agree.
you know, not have road rage. I'm talking to myself at this point, but no, I'm just kidding.
My last name is on my license plate. Everybody knows my driver.
At the same time, there's really no tool to do anything against
Right.
a council member who violates.
It
And-
literally would have to be a recall election,
Yeah,
right?
that's
I mean,
exactly
that's-
right. That's
yeah.
exactly the only tool. You could do things like censure, but they're sort of meaningless. You can do things like, you know, take away the person's travel budget so they can't go to League of Cities. You know, that may or may not be a punishment. So, but, you know, there are some tools that the councils have, but again, it's just, you know, that's the cost of your high-paying salary.
Thanks. Diane, did you have a follow-up on that?
Yes.
Okay?
I think there's so many words up there in that statement for a simple concept, that when you're an elected official, you have to act with decorum. We sit up here and we set a standard to the public for what an elected official should act like. And I think that there should be no cursing. I don't mean no damn, F-bombs, and really letting loose and lacing in, whether it's to another council member because someone gets hot under the collar, or to somebody in the audience. And I know as a council member, I have had people come to me from the audience and feel intimidated because of that passionate use of language, and some of it being, cursing. And I know we had this discussion once before, so where do you draw the line? But I think it's pretty clear what a decorum is in a public body. And I find that a bunch of gobbledygook when it should be really simple.
Well, remember, this governs the public's behavior as well as the council's behavior. So, with all due respect, not everybody agrees on what decorum is, proper decorum. I mean, there's the joke about, the lawyer told his client to dress up when she was going to court. She dressed up like she was going to a club on Saturday night, and he meant dress like you're going to church. I mean, it's a joke, but again, everybody has a different standard. That's why specific is better.
Right.
It's better. And I know it seems like a lot of language, but you can, if you read it, it does have.
So where does it say no cursing in there?
I think what you said regarding some of those would be graphic content.
Well, personal attacks, discrimination,
Slurs,
harassment.
Intimidation,
the
hostility. I mean,
I'd be okay, Lisa, if, around slurs, if you wanted to add cursing.
But I guess the environment free of hostility, typically if you're using swear words against someone, it's pretty much hostile. It's not like you're complimenting someone necessarily.
I would also make the point that the reason why I'm concerned, I'm not against it, but like the younger generation, their words are very different than the words we use today, and they have lots of different meanings that we don't, so having to keep track of what those would be. I would also point out that there's a population that every time somebody uses deity's name, it is a curse word.
Right.
And so by putting that, like, how do you define what that is? And so this to me is, I know you would like it simpler, but I think if we simplified it, it would make it more difficult to understand what that is.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I would also argue that one of the reasons why the language is what it is because you could have the same feeling of being attacked or what have you without using curse words.
Right.
And this language is a little bit broader in that sense in terms of being able to address any of those types of situations that may occur, whether you're using curse words or not.
Right.
So
I think Kara's point was good about, some people using the deity, could be just, they use that every day, and others could be very offensive. So I think it's situational. But it's, up to the majority.
And the other thing I would just say is, remember, you have the personal point of privilege. So
Right.
whatever, if you don't overuse it, but if somebody says something that you feel is hostile or offensive
Intimidating
or
or-
intimidating, you point of privilege.
Right.
And that stops the meeting, and then you can discuss why you think this violates the policy.
Right.
And like I said, and different people are gonna have different tolerances.
Right.
Of what's offensive and what's not.
Right. I've been called many things, so I'm still here. But it's up to the majority. Everybody okay on my right on kind of how it exists, or any comments on any modifications or additions, subtractions? No? Anybody else? Yes, Dr. Gillespie.
I think this comes just in time because we had a presentation filled with foul language.
Yes, it was.
No, but-
You and Nathan are both excused.
Right, but yeah, I also agree with Vice Mayor that swear words, curse words means different things to different people. growing up, shut up was a curse word in my house, and my mouth would be washed with soap if I said that to my mother, so.
Right. As it should to your mother.
Yes, I agree.
Jeez, come on. Okay. Well, I feel there's a majority of comfort.
I wouldn't even be
on
here.
Thank you. Please continue, Lisa.
The last suggested change is the addition of a special events section to include courtesy quorum notice postings and limit the number of public body members attending tours in the field. This section is intended to ensure compliance with open meeting laws during public community events, address safety concerns, and reduce potential hazards during events that include field tours, and streamline and simplify the administration of tours and special events.
Thank
The
you.
specific proposed language regarding the currency quorum language helps inform the public that no decision-making or business will be conducted when public body members attend special events, which ensures transparency and accessibility for the public. We already do this as a practice. This just formalizes our practice. Additionally, sometimes special events, especially field tours or site visits, involve in-person activities that could pose safety risk to attendees. So limiting the number of attendees to the first 3 members to respond to invitations help mitigate these risks. It also helps streamline the process of organizing and managing these field tours.
Thank you. Anybody have any comments? So if you're the 4th person to say, I'm coming to the chili cook-off, you're out. You can't come. Or you have to wait for someone to leave first on there. Shane, did you want to?
It's, just to clarify, Mayor, it would be something where you were going out into the field, like maybe a mine tour.
Right.
And you have to, take several different vehicles. You may
Yep.
have to wear hard hats. We're talking
Shoe
about
sizes
those.
and all of
Correct.
that.
We're talking about those type of excursions.
That was in jest, sort of, on there. Everybody okay with this?
It always puts staff in a little bit of an awkward position. So having this included as, as kind of a rule that you guys are
Policy.
governing yourself, then you'll know that if you're number 4 to sign up.
And Bianca has to say, I'm
yeah,
sorry, don't go attack Bianca.
Yeah, yeah.
Refer to the last.
You guys are governing yourself on this one.
To the last policy we just talked about when you're speaking with her. Okay, thank you. Everybody good? Super. Moving on to item number 16, Madam Clerk.
Presentation and discussion regarding the La Villita Community Center project.
Thank you. Austin Campbell, our Recreations Manager, will be presenting this item.
So tonight's going to be a presentation on the La Villita Community Center. It'll be an update, and there's a lot of photos in there.
And everybody knows, where the La Villita Community Center, Rec Center is. Austin, can you just touch on that because we have 2 new council members?
Sure. So it's right on the corner. It is 71 La Villita Road. So it's
It was the United Methodist Church right there on the corner of La Villita and Sal Rita Road.
All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the initial design. Once I read through everything, I'll try to zoom in and kind of show you where everything's located. So in this initial design, we have a secure transaction window. We have a customer-friendly lobby for better customer service. We have secure access from the lobby to the multi-purpose space for participant safety. And then office space, we'll have some offices for our coordinators and manager. We'll also have some dedicated workspace for our recreation generalists. And then our front office recreation leads and customer support specialists will have a place to work. And there'll also be a conference room in here. So I'll try to zoom in. There we go. So this will be the lobby area. You can kind of see here with the red, that will be our secure transaction window. This is going to be our front office area. So we'll have our recreation leads. We'll also have our customer support specialist up front here. Along the left side of the wall here, we'll have some offices for the coordinators and manager. And then the back side here is our conference room. This space right here is going to be our open workspace for all our recreation generalists. So they'll actually have a dedicated space now to work. So we're very much looking forward to that. And as I mentioned before, it's a lot of photos, so feel free to stop and ask any questions. So this first couple photos here is the offices and conference room. So the offices are going to be more on that left-hand side photo. That's the front office, as well as on the right-hand side there with the insulation sticking out. That's going to be the coordinators and managers office. And then the photo on the right really gives a good view of what the conference room is going to look like. Again, it's still being framed up, but that'll be the conference room. So this is going to be the lobby. This is going to be that secure transaction. Right now we're running out of Animax, and it's kind of a wide open facility. So we'll actually have a more secure lobby, kind of what the school district has. So the transaction window is a little tough to see. It'll be right about here. It'll be the secure transaction window. And that's what we'll be able to do all the over-the-counter field permits, any sort of thing, signing up for classes or programs. It'll be all secure, so folks won't be able to get in and out. It'll just be, kind of when you're at the doctor's office, you check in. So it'll be a very secure transaction window. And then again, here's just kind of a back look of that. So if you look over here, you can kind of see where the front lobby doors are. So that's where all the transactions will happen. And then again, the photo to the right is just kind of a bigger view of what it's going to look like when it's finished.
And those glass doors on the right, that's facing Sahuarita Road, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. And they're already existing there. So we also are going to be adding an electrical panel wall. We're planning on running a lot of our camps, programs, activities out of that, and just for safety reasons, it was easier to just put a small wall up to keep the kids away from the electrical panels. But that's going to be in the large multi-purpose space. So it's up on the stage, so you can see the carpet. The stage is carpeted, and again, that'll kind of keep the kids away and anyone that shouldn't be around it.
Yep.
We'll also be having a kitchen. This will kind of be on the northeast corner of the facility. We do a lot of kids cooking classes. A lot of our camps also involve, baking things, cooking things. So that is where that'll happen. Again, there's not a lot in that picture, but there'll be a kitchen.
So there'll be a
there.
commercial kitchen which will pass public health and all those types of things?
So it won't be a commercial kitchen,
Okay.
but we'll be able to, if we need to throw something in the microwave or use an air fryer, just something very simple. Again, it's for our cooking classes and our programs as well.
Okay, thanks.
And then we also resurfaced the courts. So if you were familiar with the building before, it was kind of a concrete floor. We came in, profiled it, and put down a sport court. So it's very similar to what you'd find out on, the tennis courts at Onza Trail. So some of the new courts we've added are pickleball, basketball, and handball. You can see them on the screen here. So pickleball is going to be outlined in white. Basketball is outlined basketball is outlined kind of in the white, the turquoise. You can see like the 3-point line and everything. And then handball is going to be on the far left side. It's outlined in gray. So there's 3 handball courts, 2 pickleball courts, and then 1 essentially 3v3 court. Some of the new programs we're super excited to get rocking and rolling. We'll be able to have drop-in pickleball and drop-in basketball. Currently, we have those tentatively scheduled for the mornings and evenings. We've also been hearing a lot of feedback about creating a pickleball league, so we tentatively have that scheduled for the evenings. Also, with the pickleball league, we can now have in-house instructors come out and teach. Another activity that we run is handball with SPD, so they'll actually have their own court that's town-owned. And then our big one we're very excited for is we can increase our participation numbers from about 34 to over 60.
Nice.
So our camps are always filling up. Our max is 34 a week, so we'll now be able to essentially double.
It always has a waiting list as well.
There's a very long waiting list for that, yeah.
Great.
Some tentative key dates. So we're expected to get furniture on December 19th. We're still waiting for our IT equipment move. That's going to be the phones, computers, all the other things we need to get up and running. That's planned for after the cables run. Our grand opening is tentatively scheduled for January 30th. As I kind of get some more details, I'll be sure to share that with you. We're kind of waiting on some key things, doors, door frames, the rest of the drywall texturing. And we're anticipating programming starting February 3rd. We chose February to better serve our club spike parents and the relationship with SUSD. We didn't want to be in the middle of a month and then change our kids from going to Animax over to LVCC, so we thought it'd be easier to just start with a clean slate in February. We're hoping this allows us the ability for our Club Spike participants to walk. With all the surrounding schools around us, those are, the majority of our Club Spike participants.
Thanks for working with them so closely.
Yes.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
You said February 3rd, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I heard somebody ask.
They're
and
listening.
And then just a quick location comparison. Right now, our recreation division, we're running out of the Animax Recreation Center. So our max capacity for Camp Sarita, which is our 8-week summer camp program, we can fit 34 kids in there, and it feels like there's 100 in there. It's a very small space. You can kind of see from the numbers here. So the multi-purpose space, that's where we're running the camps, doing our programs. That's a little over, it's 13,950 or 13,095 square feet. We have a lot of guest speakers come in and present to the kids. We have a lot of classes in there where presenters want to come in. We don't have a stage in there. The other one is our office square footage. So there's been times where I have 16 people in my office, and it's 320 square feet spread out between 2 to 3 offices. And then we look at LVCC, our max capacity for Camp Sarita that jumps up to 60 plus. The big number here that I love to see is that multi-purpose square footage. We're almost at 5,500 square feet. So a lot of space for the kids to run around, have fun. A lot of space for us to run programs. The other key thing is we have a stage for guest speakers, so they can get up on the stage, present to the kids. We could show a movie, all those kind of activities. And then just the square footage for the office space over there is going to be about 940 square feet. So a big upgrade from where we're at now.
Right.
And
Thanks,
that is
and I
all
know
have.
that also when that building was designed as a church, it had the ability to blow out a wall and such, and there's a lot of land over there that we had purchased with it, so just keep that in mind. As money allows, we have the ability to actually grow that space.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate
Thanks.
it. We only have one more presentation. I usually allow a break at 8. Is everybody okay with going another 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most? No pressure, Devin and Dylan. But you stand between us and adjournment. So, Madam Clerk, item number 17.
Presentation and discussion regarding the Man in the Maze Park Disc Golf Course project.
Thank you. And Dylan Pruitt, our Parks and Rec Facilities Manager, is presenting this item. And I was teasing because it's very exciting, but you do stand behind us on adjournment. So
Absolutely, Mayor. And with respect to your time, I will go quickly unless there's questions. Okay, Mayor Murphy, members of the council, thanks for having me here tonight. Just want to give a quick update on a planned project that we're currently underway over at Man in the Maze, which is a disc golf course. This whole project really began during our closeout process with Freeport McMoran when we were walking the property, and they actually had mentioned that they were considering doing a disc golf course out there as part of their construction, and for reasons they decided to not do it. They didn't want to pigeonhole us into that space, but we actually thought it was a great idea and a great use of the space, and so that kind of led to conversations with a local avid disc golfer, Clay Birchfield, who reached out originally to discuss the reinstallation of the small course we had over at Animax Park that had to be removed for the sewer installation a few years back. But during those conversations, it kind of reignited the discussion that, hey, maybe we should look at doing that at Man in the Maze. And then he put us in contact with another local, Dylan Gassaway, who's actually a disc golf course designer and installer.
I never even knew that even existed before this.
So I know that I apologize for the image. It's the best we have right now because this is currently still under design work. But we're currently looking at doing a 27-hole disc golf course at Man in the Maze. So it'll be an 18-hole main course, kind of more set towards that advanced or pro level. And we can get into some of that in a little bit. But that will all be using newly purchased Innova brand goals. We also are looking at having a 9-hole sort of beginner course that will reuse the older Innova goals that we had purchased and installed at Animax and subsequently removed during the sewer project. There will also be strategic tree plantings. They cannot be irrigated up there, so we'll have to do manual watering through establishment because of the engineering controls in place in the Dewar. We're not allowed to put irrigation up on the cap. which actually is why disc golf makes such an interesting use of the space, because it's limiting our penetrations into that cap to something that we can actually use.
For the new council members, when they capped it, we didn't have the ability to bore a lot and do a lot to it. We have to protect the cap, so this is a very unique use without having to, go down into the soils.
Yeah, and to the mayor's point, there's some sections of the property where we can do extensive work.
Yep.
Up on top of the cap is where we're really limited. So if you drive down currently Twin Buttes, you see the big dirt cap that's out there with almost nothing on it. That's the area that we're talking about.
Right.
These are some tentative designs from Dylan. This is that Man in the Maze disc golf is one of, he's got 3 or 4 different design title, or a name plate, I guess you'd call. But in general, for obstacles, we're looking at kind of a mined railroad themed design. So railroad ties, recycled signs. We've done some cool art projects with the recycled signs from our Public Works Department, as well as potentially looking at getting some used mining equipment and donations from our local partners, Freeport McMoran and ASARCO. We're in conversations with them to get some donations of used mining equipment, tires, other cool stuff from mining. And then Hudbay potentially looking at doing some financial support for potentially signage or something else for the project.
What's the circle?
The concrete?
It's a concrete culvert. Yeah, so that's an example. We may not necessarily be doing a concrete culvert, but some of the tires that they're looking at donating are substantial, like 12-foot tall tires. But that's an example of what's called a Mando. So you have to throw through that to get to the goal. If you don't, it doesn't count. So stuff like that is what we're referring to with obstacles. The same thing with that kind of sign arch that Dylan designed there. That's an example of a Mando. You have to make it through the sign arch for your shot to count. So tentative installation, we were on track to begin this month, but some things have kind of pushed our schedule back a little bit.
What could that have been?
So currently we're looking at January kind of kickoff of the installation of the goals, the T-pads, and at least some of the obstacles. And then tentative completion either in February or March of 2025, depending on what the coordination and time frame looks like with some of our local partners for some of those obstacles and stuff. And that's it.
Well, very
Questions?
exciting. Any questions from the council? Thanks for the presentation. I know it actually could bring in tournaments and things like that, right? Because of
Absolutely.
the level of professionalism of the 27 holes.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm really excited about, Mr. Mayor, was none of the courses up in Tucson or in the surrounding area, they're all kind of limited on space. And so we have the option or the potential to have like an 800, 900 foot par on this course, which is unheard of anywhere
Right.
in Tucson and most of the state of Arizona. So,
Well, we like all our STs, first, best, biggest, all those.
That's right.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Yes?
Nope, free.
Good question. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So where can you buy your discs? Who's going to be selling them locally?
So locally, you can get them actually at, was it Big Five down here? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Big Five has them. Most of the sporting stores have them locally.
Good.
Is it a special one?
There are specialty
Yeah.
discs you can get into. It's a
Oh.
whole thing.
Oh, I didn't
If
know
I'd have
that.
brought Dylan Gassaway here tonight, he'd have come with a whole bag full of different discs you can purchase.
Yeah, I'll
There's
get the 9 holes.
drivers, chippers, putters. There's a whole different range of discs.
It's like carrying your golf clubs, only you got a bag of different discs that do different things in terms of
Right.
slices and
Oh, wow.
distance and putting. And
You'll have to teach me. I don't know anything
Yeah,
about
correct.
any of this.
A good starter set usually comes with about 3 discs. So you'll have a
Oh.
driver, a putter, a chip, something like that.
Great. Well, thanks. I wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and holiday season. And if you would just keep Mayor Honey in your prayers. The celebration of life is December 21st at the new renamed municipal complex, the Ed Honey Municipal Complex that they've renamed. So if you just keep his family in your prayers. And again, have happy holidays, and we're adjourned. Oh, well, that's